For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliott Apollos, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Due Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Due Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Due Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, and good morning and welcome into another edition of Due Hockey Hotline. I am your host, Matt Diegert, and as always, my co-host, Beyond716. Brian, how are you this morning?
Doing good. Still down in palm trees in low-tax Florida, much to Kevin Adams' delight. And how are you today?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I mean, we, it's been a little long week this week, but we're getting it going. I know you had a very long week yourself with your actual real job, so
I'm happy to be here and talk some Sabre hockey today. So
didn't get to see you on the Coast to Coast podcast, but Whittle did a great job of him of doing it by himself. He always can talk. So the almighty
anybody that's out there, Whittle forgets sometimes more about the Bills than I remember. So he's tremendous. He can carry a show. So again, if you haven't listened to us, please come in. If you're a Bills fan, please join us every Wednesday. We're got some great stuff coming up this offseason. It doesn't stop for us. I mean, we just keep going. So we'll talk about everything Bills. But we are here to dive into some hockey, Matt. Where would you like to begin this morning?
Oh, I don't know. I think we should end the show right here. The Sabres
just have a great day. Okay.
But no, in all seriousness, we found out on Monday. Well, first and foremost, I want to touch on the parlay we had last week. We were 1 for 2 last week, unfortunately, because the Colorado Avalanche gave up 4 goals in the third period with about 15 minutes left, which was absolutely crazy. I couldn't believe that after being up 2-0 in a game 7. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do,
Student has arrived, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Still early, still late for me, student. I'm usually on the West Coast. Imagine this would be a 6. That'd be a super flex right now if I pulled that off. But
right.
Yep. So anyway,
so we got some good hockey going on. Go ahead and finish about last Saturday.
Oh, I mean, those games. You want to know why the NHL playoffs are special? There's really nothing really to add to it.
Last Sunday was the perfect example. 1.6 seconds left. Winnipeg ties it and then wins it in overtime. That was just
all I could think about, Matt, is I'm really happy for St. Louis fans that they won a few years ago, because if they lost that way and never had a cup like us, that's brutal. I mean, that is a brutal way. You're up 3-1 on the road in Game 7, 2 minutes ago, and you're thinking, wow, we're beating the number one, we're beating the President's Trophy team. We're going to advance, and just like that, you
never quit. You never quit. You never stop playing. You never, we saw it during the regular season. We saw it during the regular season against the Golden Knights. Speaking of them, I was super excited to see Jack Eichel lose his jock strap to Connor McDavid the other night. But
that was good. I'm a little surprised. I mean, Edmonton is getting a lot of the bounces in that series so far. It'd be interesting to see what happens tonight. I think it's tonight they play Game 3.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think. But weird is they're really not getting the scoring from their big guys. Like they're getting a lot of that secondary scoring. I mean, we've talked a lot about them in Toronto, right? In that they both have the superstars, right? But can they get the production from the bottom of the lineup? And Pickard's been just good enough so far. I mean, he hasn't been great, but the Knights have been. They had 2-0 lead, and they put up 4 goals the other night, and they to be down 2-0 is kind of surprising, but here we are. So and then Winnipeg got and I think what was big last night is that Hellebuck had a good game. Like, he got a shutout. I think that's good for his confidence going forward. Maybe he'll settle down a little bit now from his real shaky playoff performance, to say the least.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that that series goes. I mean, I still like Dallas, but we'll see how that unfolds going forward.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, we have to, kind of getting into the playoffs here real quickly before we get to this news and notes from the Sabres this week. I mean, we got four great series going on right now, and I'm glad to see that Florida ended up winning last night in overtime. We're able to tie it. And then, we're able to, get it to overtime and everything like that, and ended up winning 5-4. I mean, that's a heck of a series going on right now. Now back in Florida for Game 4. And then you got Washington, Carolina, and you got Winnipeg, Dallas, and you got Edmonton, like you were just talking about, is now up 2-0. So I mean, it's you got Game 3 of the Hurricanes Capitals on tonight at 6 p.m. We got Florida and the Maple Leafs on Sunday. And then you got the Oilers tonight at 9 p.m., like we were just talking about. And Dallas plays Sunday. They lost 4-0 last night. So it seems like Hellebuck, after that first series of being a little bit, I don't want to say out of it, but, not himself, he kind of stood on his head last night and helped the Jets get past them 4-0. So it's good. It's good to see that the top end goaltender, that number one goalie in the NHL is kind of back to form almost. It seems
got his swagger back last night.
Yeah.
Right. That football clip where I got my swagger. I'd love that one if anybody's seen it. The one high school football player, I got my swagger back. That's kind of how I felt last night with Buck. But I grind my teeth when I say this, Matt. Toronto's really impressing me, and even last night, you just have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, I hate giving Toronto credit, but Matt, I think we talked about it last week with Toronto, a little bit like the Boston Red Sox, right? Like once they got over the Yankees, I think they were able to relax as an organization, and then the talent kind of shined through. If Toronto gets past this series, they're going to be very dangerous to me because I feel like this has been their major hurdle for so long. And they're big guys. I mean, Matthew Nyes, we got to talk about him. I mean, he's becoming a heck of a player. And that's one of the biggest keys for me with Toronto is that they're getting that scoring finally. I mean, Matthew still hasn't been amazing, but he doesn't have to be right now. Even if he just Matthews is almost like that cleanup hitter right now, in the lineup that just commands that respect. Like, you know what I mean? Like Juan Soto on the Mets. Okay. Yeah. He'll go 1-for-1 with 3 walks, but if the other guys in the lineup are producing, you take it, right? So if you got to count for Matthews all the time. That opens it up for the other guys that they have, and they've really built the back end of their roster really, really well. It pains me as a Sabre fan to say it, but you just have to give credit where credit's due. But that game is going to be tremendous on Sunday night.
Yeah, I still got to throw it out there. I mean, it's been 56 seasons since 1967 that they've had a cup drought. Yes, the Sabres have not won a cup since in inception in 1970, but I still just
but we can't. Listen, I always tell this to a Toronto fan. Sabres weren't around in 1967, so from my vantage point, we're 0-0. I mean, I don't worry about the cups they had in 1940 or 1950. Sabres weren't a franchise then,
right?
So what are we going to do, right? So but we'll see. Let's hope the Florida Panthers come back and win. I don't know right now, Matt. I'm really on the fence with that series. I kind of feel Toronto might win it. I hate to say it, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I fully expect them to, because they still played a hell of a game. Scoring 4 goals in that series against in that game against Bobrovsky is still a feat. Like it's still a feat, and any time Bobrovsky can stand on his head and them be in a spot where it's just like Hellebuck. At any point he can shut a team out, but I don't know. I mean, I just we were just talking on that real quickly just to let everybody know, and the Maple Leafs Sabres have a 123, 80, 18-11 record against them. So I'm
Thank
not,
you, Matt.
you know,
Thank you. You know that graphic
you know,
of Michael Scott? Thank you. You know what?
yes,
That's
yeah,
true. I mean, that's the thing about Toronto. For me, I've always looked down on them. I don't care if they're a big market. We've, with the exception of the last few years, which we know the Sabres have been abysmal, right? In terms of, the streak and everything. I don't, Toronto has kind of, for me, been an afterthought for a long time. Like, I don't get wrapped up in it, but I do not want them to win. Oh, that's a great quote. McDavid Rosehousing Eichel is kind of cathartic as I punch air for 14 more years. Dude,
yeah. It's not going to be
go
14 more years. I still have a
if
little
we
bit of
go
faith.
if we go 14 more years, I don't know. I don't know if I can
Yeah,
handle it.
it's not
I
going to be
don't know.
14 more years. I really do think that I mean, if they make the changes that need to be made, and like I said, we'll get into it here after we finish up the playoff talk and stuff like that. But if the changes are made, and there's coaches out there, that can go on the bench, whether it be like a Chris Taylor coming back or anything like that. Hopefully, there's something there that will turn the power play around, turn whatever needs to happen on the ice around. But we'll see what because Kevin Adams is staying. So I mean that's the big news to come out of this week. But real quickly to finish touching up on the playoffs, Edmonton being up 2-0 on Vegas is just kind of cathartic in itself, along with McDavid to Draisaitl the other night. They play tonight at 9 p.m. Can't wait to see that. That
it's funny.
continue.
I got a friend that's a diehard Oilers fan, and for years he was frustrated. Oh, maybe they should trade Draisaitl. I said, listen, when you have 2 of the 3, 4 best players in the world, you find a way to work with them, because if sooner or later, if you get the right combinations, get the right players, you just need to get rid of some bad contracts and some other pieces on that team. And now you see, even with just average goaltending, But I will tell you, I have a very solid parlay tonight. I don't know how you feel, but I'm pretty confident in tonight for 2 teams. Very confident. Yes, they're student. Now, you wouldn't see me wear a Jets hat because I would never own a Jets hat. I would, even if you lay me down for the last time in a coffin, I would put a Jets hat on me. But
hey, they're still got the longest playoff drought out there. So in the New York Jets, so I'm super happy about that. So
we're tied.
They're 1 season ahead of us. I think they're at 15 years. The Sabres are at 14. But I will throw shade on any of the Sabres or the Bills rivals in any chance I get. So with that being said, I mean, if you haven't seen any of the playoffs this year, if you obviously if you're watching this show, you're a hockey fan. But if there is any non kind of Bills fans / hockey fans out there, and you haven't watched any of the playoffs yet, definitely turn it on. It's probably the most beautiful sport that's out there right now. Love football, could talk about it all day long, every day of the week. Love the Bills, but hockey is just it's everything that goes on the ice is just so much fun. It's so fun to watch. Even my hate for Gary Bettman and everything else aside, for all kind of ruining some of hockey, it's still one of the best. It's still the most beautiful that's out there of the 4 major sports. So.
I'll tell you what, Matt, as much as we love the Bills, right? And we love the NHL playoffs, they're special in their own right? And the NFL playoffs are awesome when the Bills are in it, right? If the Bills aren't in it, I'm not quite as, invested, but I got to be honest, as this drought has wore on, it's been a little harder at times to get excited because we're just so bad. Like, even my hatred of Toronto has dwindled because we're just so terrible. Just our image of it, right? It's just hard to even take as much joy as it used to be. But I still love that one Twitter account that last days since the Leafs won the cup, and they send out their updates, 20-something thousand days or the last amount of days since they lost to Zamboni driver. Remember when they lost to the Zamboni driver?
I do remember that. Yeah.
So it's got to stay alive. But you're right. Yeah. This time of year, I love being a fan of all sports. I mean, for me, I got to tell you, the best buzz I've ever had as a sports fan live is going to happen today, and it's not hockey. Okay,
Not watching
but
Michael Jordan dominate your Knicks.
yeah, when I was a season ticket holder to the Knicks in the '90s, right? To me, walking the Garden, if anybody hasn't been there, it's a special place. There's something about it. It's the central New York. You take the trains in, you come from whatever NJ Transit, Long Island Railroad. I know some of you are like, what are you talking about? But you come upstairs, and there's just something about that place when you walk in. It's special. You just know it's a huge event. It's a small arena, so it keeps the crowd noise in. It's just electric. Still the most electric scene I've ever been involved with was some of the 90s and the Pacers that games in the 90s. I mean, there's something. Plus, the other thing about football is, with the Bills late in the year, you could be freezing your tuchus off. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Although it's great. You know what I mean? It's a different great. So it's
right.
For anyone out there who's a sports fan, watch those games today. So
yeah,
I gotta troll Whittle. I gotta have my I mean, he's been having it over me with the Celtics for a while, so it's my turn now. So, but I refuse to talk too much crap. I'm waiting for the.
Yeah, you're a Bills fan. You're a Bills fan.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
waiting for the other. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah,
so
the Knicks haven't won since the year I was born, 1973. Yes, I'm old, folks. So yes, there's no reason for me to run my mouth on that. So.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So, and you're talking a little bit about the playoffs and stuff like that, as far as being a sports fan. And I'll be honest with you, if the Bills, during the drought, I had a tough time watching any of the playoffs after the Bills got eliminated because of how into the Bills you get during those 17 games and now 18 games, and then all of a sudden, they're in it now, and I didn't even watch the Super Bowl this year. I know what happened. I went back and watched it, but I didn't initially watch it because it was just it was all right. I feel like the Bills are supposed to be here. Had the ball left, Kincaid drops the ball, and it was hard for a couple of weeks to kind of stay within football. But with even with the Sabres, it was the same thing. When they got eliminated, it was tough to watch, but I still watch the Stanley Cup Finals, and now with them being in the drought, it's literally just, it's so much fun to watch because you're not that invested. You kind of are out of it by, January with this team. So you're kind of sitting there thinking to yourself, you're like, oh, let's watch hockey. Let's enjoy the playoffs. And, with the Sabres, you can't, even though they're not in it, it's still so much fun to watch. So I completely agree with you. It's definitely more palatable to watch hockey than it is as a Sabres fan than it is as watching football as a Bills fan once they're eliminated. So
absolutely.
Let's kind of get into it here. So on Monday we found out, unfortunately we won't be able to run our best segment that we have at the end of the show today. With Puckpedia and running the simulator and everything like that, but the Sabres, they actually lost a spot, which was actually and we saw the picture from Sal Sports, Sal Capaccio. We saw the picture that he put out of the number 1 ball going in there and being right underneath the number that actually won the lottery. Always bridesmaid, never the bride for the Sabres. So, but they actually dropped down to 9. They dropped down to spot 9, and they had a 5.6% chance of dropping down to 9 and a 6.5% of winning the actual lottery. So, in Sabres fashion, they go with the lower odds and they end up losing the and dropping down a spot. So, but at 9, I get the whole argument, back and forth of, hey, it's a top 10 pick, but that player's probably not going to be a valuable NHL player for the next 3 years. So I'm really on team trade the pick. more than anything else, because I think you need to get NHL players in here rather than actually, keeping the pick. So I really am of that mind of, trading the pick, and I hope that works out. I hope the other bit of news, I hope that other ear that is there that we've talked about, for the last couple of months with this team, is hopefully that Kevyn Adams finds somebody that he trusts and he can kind of work with to kind of put some of this stuff together. And if they end up keeping the pick, I get it, but there better be other corresponding moves that show why, okay, great. I'm planning on making the playoffs next year. I'm planning on being here for a longer term period than next year, because I really truly feel in my gut and my heart that this is Kevyn Adams' last year if he does not win, if they do not make the playoffs, because they have 1 year left of Lindy Ruff. They have 1 year left of Kevyn Adams. How do you feel about that, Brian?
Well, losing the lottery. I mean, listen, no, by no means did we expect to win the lottery, but you told me, we were talking off the air, you brought this up perfectly. We had better odds of winning the lottery than we did landing where we were. Was it, albeit 5% or something, that right? And of course we end up 2 spots down. But this is a draft where number 9 is not as strong as it usually. This is not a particularly incredibly deep draft like we've seen a couple of years ago. We've had some really, really deep drafts. I mean, there's really not that number 1 guy at the top that you say, wow, I gotta have that guy right now. Next year, you got Gavin McKenna coming in, who is he may get the exceptional status that very, very few players ever get, right? So, first order of business, no trading your 2026 first. No, I'm not dealing it, because in the off chance that becomes number 1, we can't miss on that one, right? That's first. Not that I didn't even want to go down that road, Matt, but they have to they have to do that. It's going to be hard to trade this pick, Matt. It's not. It's harder to do than it is. But again, bringing in who we brought in for Kevyn Adams, I just don't want Eric Stahl to be a yes man. That's my number 1 fear, right? I want him. He's got a lot of experience. He's very well respected. I don't necessarily hate the hire. How can I hate the hire if I don't really know what he could do, right? He's got a lot of. He's been in 3 organizations, 3 or 4. He's been in Montreal. He's been in Minnesota for a long time. He's been with us. He's been with Carolina for a long time. So he's very well respected. And sometimes those guys turn out to be great executives. So let's give him a shot, right?
And that's the thing.
Something different to Kevyn Adams. Say, hey, Kevin, look at this. Look at X, Y, and Z. Oh,
yeah.
Eric, I never really thought of it that way before. Just another angle that maybe gets him to, or say, yeah, Kevin, you should make that trade. Or how about we add this, right? And maybe push him along. That's all I'm looking for out of Kevyn Adams. So just got to hope for the best with that.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, like, I'll touch on this real quickly. It no matter how I feel about it, like, he has to. He has to lead us into more than just Russia in the dead of winter. And truly, it's a true statement, because he's got to actually realize that this is his last year, and if they don't make the playoffs, because most GMs, most coaches, they don't get, and obviously they've changed a couple of times that he's been here with the coach. Most GMs don't get 6 years if they're a constant loser, and they've regressed the last 2 years. And I get 2 years ago was injury, and last season was, they were better than the year before, but also they just had a 13-game losing streak, and you can't have that. You can't go through that, and expect to make the playoffs. So, I don't know where the Sabres go from here. I really think that, as far as the hire that they made in Eric Stahl as a special advisor, I hope that was a move to bring him in. We know that he has really no front office experience, but hopefully he can be that, that right-hand man that Kevin Adams can kind of confide in, as another way to look at players and look at players that they can bring in and look at different talent in a different way. And hopefully having that other voice in the room will definitely help him. And that's kind of what the other thing that we found out this week is the Sabres are looking for a special advisor other than Eric Stahl that has the GM experience, has NHL, GM experience. Because when it comes down to it, he needs somebody that he can bounce things off of that has that experience as a general manager to help him kind of right the ship here and get the players in here that need, because if I'm of the mind personally, if he had somebody other than, himself and maybe Lindy Ruff in their last year during that 13 game losing streak, he would have made a move during that time. He would have had that GM being like, hey, we're 7 games into a losing streak here. Let's go pick up one of these guys that, on waivers and see if we can't insert them into the lineup and maybe turn that 13 game losing streak into only a 10 game losing streak or an 8 game losing streak or whatever the case may be, or make a trade or, find a way to finalize something that might've been on the table that, maybe last year when they were trying to acquire the player that Kevin Adams was talking about last year at this time, maybe he finds a way to help him get that done. And unfortunately, they already talked to Lou Lamoriello and Ken Holland, which unfortunately feels like that they basically laughed at the Sabres at this point, because at this point, who in their rightful mind wants to come in as a special advisor to Kevin Adams and go to a losing franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that the Sabres are reaching out to some of these people. But listen, I worked for Lou Lamoriello when I interned with the Devils in 1996. I know it's been a while, but that is not the kind of guy. He commanded the whole office. Like when I tell you, when Lou Lamoriello even walked in the break room and brought us bagels on a Wednesday, which he did, right, to game day, right? Lou Lamoriello was the head honcho. He's not the kind of guy that's going to want to just come in and say, hey, just let me be a special assistant. He's way beyond that. He's been doing this way too long. Ken Holland as well. I mean, he's an architect of the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, he kind of turned them around as you see it right now. Remember we talked about how they needed some changes and Ken Holland set them up for success. He was with Detroit. You think he's interested in – I think they're interested in Buffalo. They're just not interested in that role in Buffalo. And that I still believe – to a GM like Holland, to even a guy like Rick Dudley, to the Sabres I'd be salivating if I was a great GM. I got tons of young talent. I got salary cap room. I got draft picks. I got young players. What more can you ask for, Matt? Right?
Well,
and I'm going to a situation where they have a 1 in 14 years where I could only do better than the previous guy. I mean, Bell's made a career off that, right? He went to the Jets, who were downtrodden. He went to New England, who was downtrodden. He brought them up. He couldn't lose in that situation. The Greens understand that. They see these opportunities, and that's what they were after. But, yeah, I agree. They're like, no, we don't want to be a special assistant. So, yeah, Kevin Adams is – I told you, I compare him to Doug Whaley. I've said it before for all Bills fans. I mean, he's not a completely incompetent GM. He does make some good trades, but he needs help. Just like Doug Whaley did. It's a real deal. Good to see you as always. And students out of here today. Can we just?
He is.
Well, is that different from any other day? I mean, can we just? He's always in mid-season form.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's you're not wrong in the sense, but if I'm a Ken Holland, if I'm a Lou Lamoriello, and I'm hearing that Kevin Adams is staying on and you're keeping him for one more year, I'm waiting. I'm waiting my time. I'm biding my time because the track record, kind of like we talk about with UPL all the time, is the track record is there that he the GM spot based on the last 5 years is going to be open next year. So I'm sitting there waiting, biding my time, and I don't want to attach myself to this in a special advisor role where hey, it didn't turn around, so now I have my shot to go in there and be the full GM and take on a bigger role, take on the full, and I might be talking from the Ken Holland side rather than the Lou Lamoriello side, because Lou Lamoriello is what, 80, 81, 82 years old?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he may be of different, where he doesn't want to end his career at his age being a special advisor.
Mm-hmm.
He may want to go one more time to try and, rebuild a team. So you never know. I mean, but you brought up another, you brought up another
mutiny in Long Island,
mm-hmm.
by the way. I just wanted to get that in about Lamoriello. Like, they wanted him out. I just don't think he's the right choice right now to be full general manager. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in.
I don't think he's the right fit here either. I don't. No. I truly don't. I think that they need somebody like a Ken Holland. But again, we have Kevin Adams. We have to be, as much as we don't like it, we are resigned to the fact that he's going to be here next year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, short of a 0-10 start, 0-15 start, 5-15 start, he's going to be here for all of next year, depending mm-hmm. on how the season starts, how this if they go through another 13-game losing streak. I fully hope that Terry Pegula is like, okay, you're fired. Like, mm-hmm. For any wrestling fans out there, pulls the Vince McMahon and has them join the Kiss My Ass Club and is fired at that point. But I just you brought up another name to me last night, and then somebody who's been floating around out there on Twitter is Brian Burke.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know, because it's tough. You saw what he did in Toronto. You saw what he's done throughout his entire NHL career. He helped Anaheim win a cup, but they had the pieces in place to win that cup before anything else. So,
yeah, he's he's not perfect, Brian Burke. I mean, he's a little bit an edgy. He's got an edge to him. He's been around the block. He understands the pressures of it all. I'm lukewarm on that too, Matt, to be honest. There's part of me that says, yeah, why not? Because beggars can't be choosers, right? That's the kind of spot I'm in right now with this organization, where, we can't sit. It's not like the Sabres are sitting back and, everybody's coming after us. We can pick whoever we want, right? So that's here or there. But I think, the Stahl thing, again, it's not perfect. I don't know enough about him to say, listen, of course there's a lot of Sabre fans that are negative about it, because there's every reason to be negative about the Sabres right now. Oh, he's a friend of Kevin. And I get that. But the Bills hire they're I always joke about the backup quarterback has to be an FOJ, a friend of Josh, right? Josh has his guys that he wants in there. Nobody ripped Josh Allen for it, right? Brandon Beane and McDermott have their guys out there that they want to bring in, right? Nobody rips him for it like this, like crazy. This is how sports are. People, general managers and managers, they want people around them that they can work with, that they understand at some level, that they have a relationship with. I mean, it's not anything new, but I just hope that he's not a yes man. He can say, hey, Kevin, no, let's not be afraid to trade Owen Power. Let's not be afraid to trade Bowen Byron if it gets us the right guy. I'm at a point right now, Matt, we need that guy to come in with that fresh idea, say, hey, you guys have missed the playoffs 14 years in a row. This
is not acceptable.
This shit ain't working, period.
Yeah.
Okay? You know what I mean?
It almost feels like the Eric Stahl move is almost similar to like a front office version of the Chris Drury trade back in 2003. Where it's like, hey, where is all this stuff? Like, hey, where's the pictures of the Stanley Cup? Where's the fire? Where's all this? And hopefully that is what Eric Stahl brings with his success that he's seen on the ice. Now, we talk about this with Eric Stahl as being a move that, hey, it's Kevin Adams' friend. It's we get it. Like, I get it personally. But when you're trying to, as Kevin Adams is trying to set himself up for success in his last ditch effort to be the Sabres general manager, and hopefully that's true. and we're not in the same spot next year in 2026, and we're still talking about playoffs, and we're still, we're getting ready to watch a Sabres playoff game, what they're doing this next year, rather than, they've got to let Kevin Adams bring in whatever Kevin Adams thinks he needs or thinks he wants, or his to finish his plan and to kind of get that all going so he can succeed in the best way possible. So I get everybody's, upset about, oh, it's just a friend, it's nepotism, it's whatever. But they have to allow Kevin Adams at this point to go with what he sees best, to kind of, finish what he's doing. So I don't know. I'm optimistic about the move, about them bringing in Eric Staal. But again, the thing that makes me more optimistic about that is them still looking for that that former NHL general manager, former NHL exec that is going to be Kevin Adams, also in Kevin Adams' holster, that he can kind of go to.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. It's cautious optimism for me. It's a start, right? It's something that, it's not good. To me, it's not going to hurt bringing Eric Staal into this organization.
Right.
The one thing I liked, I watched his interview. I mean, it's a pretty generic interview he had with, was it Brian Duff, the guy that's on with Baron?
Brian Duff.
I mean, it was, but he kept mentioning the word Stanley Cup over and over again. He didn't talk about playoffs. Like, that's the kind of standard he's used to, right? And those are the kind of things that I want in this organization, right? They need to. Granted, we're not in Stanley Cup mode yet, but that's the mindset that the Sabres have to have. It's, winning is everything, right? I mean, you want to do it a certain way, of course. You want to be, good in the organization, in the community, blah, blah, blah. But that's, any team could do that. I don't care if you win 20 games or 90. You could do that, right? So, but if, it's about the winning now. And this organization is, I don't want to say it's on life support, Matt, but it's difficult right now. It's hard to draw people in the building, right? And you're getting Sabre fans, again, we've talked about it, in their 20s that haven't seen any of the days that you and I saw, the great years, the Drury years, the Hasek years, and I go even back to the 80s when the Sabres were a really good team, but they couldn't make the playoffs, but they couldn't get past the first round, but they were still an excellent team, right?
Yeah.
Like, Sabre fans now haven't, if you're not over 30, you haven't seen that. And
that's we sat here talking about the Jets this year in the Blues, that series. I'm perfectly fine. Like once you get in the dance, you have an opportunity to, everybody's 0-0. Yeah. Whatever happens from there happens. But just get there. Get there. Like, that's all that you can ask for. And give yourself a chance to, perform the best you possibly can in those series once you get into the playoffs, because we saw it, minus the last minute of Game 7, St. Louis almost won that series against the number 1 seed in the NHL. The Sabres, when they in 05-06, that year that everybody thought that they were going to win the cup against Edmonton that year, even though they lost every single defenseman known to man on their team and ended up losing to Carolina, they were a 6th seed. So, I mean, we sit here talking about it. All you got to do is get in. And at that point, you have to kind of really be of the mind of, let's do what we can to get into the playoffs, and then we can continue to grow in the playoffs. And hopefully, with Levi going through the AHL and hopefully winning a Calder Cup this year and everything else, he's standing on his head himself down there, and hopefully he can take the next transition next year into the NHL. But again, I'm perfectly fine if they leave him down in the minors one more year, and go with a UPL and another veteran guy. How I feel about that. I think that they need to move on. But if it is going to be UPL, they need to give him the best chance to succeed. and they truly need to let Lindy Ruff hire his own staff. I don't like when they, it almost feels like when you change coaches in the NFL, right? Where, here's your offensive and defensive coordinator, but we're going to put you in as the head coach and ask you to succeed. Yep. You don't do that. You don't do that to a coach. You let him bring his guys in, because it's the same type of thing that we just talked about with trust and everything else for Kevin Adams. Is he needs to have the right guys to be able to feel like he can be in the right mindset and everything else to succeed. How about you do that for your coach as well and let him bring in his own guys, whether it be like we talked about, Chris Taylor just got let go from the Devils. How about they let Lindy Ruff bring him in? How about you go out and let Lindy Ruff bring in somebody else to bring in I don't like the idea personally, but how about you bring in Ryan Miller as the goaltender coach, or if that's something that he wanted to do, or any of those type of things. So I don't know. I'm at a loss right now for for the lack of things going on right now for the Sabres. Because I would have expected to see shake up on the bench, but apparently Steph Appert is the next coming of God. So, I know.
You seem to be shaking my head on that, right? So.
Yeah, and I can't believe he has a voice in any sense of anything for this team when he was just the AHL coach a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Now we have seen. Listen, there have been other teams. Like the Oilers, they brought up Knobloch, who was their AHL guy from the Rangers, right? And he's been taking the Oilers to the next level. But they also have a loaded roster, so let's not go too crazy on that, right? But the one thing about the Sabres why I'm not afraid to trade anything on this roster right now, Matt, is I feel like they're finally getting things right down in Rochester with the development of some of our players. Levi, Rosen, Hellenis, the constant Hellenis, who say he's developing a real nasty edge to his game now. Dare I say, someone even said Brad Marchand, which is a little crazy, but imagine if he's like that Barkov type of just very tough guy. So we have these young players, Matt, that are getting close. Where are they going to play right now with all? If you sign Peterka to a long-term deal, if you sign Byram and all these other guys, where are they going to play? Where are they going to fit?
Well,
right?
And that's the thing. You have to have moves. You have to have corresponding moves.
Yep, and the thing is, these guys that have been up with the Sabres for a while, they have bad habits, right? Unfortunately, they developed a losing culture. They've been part of this. I'm okay with if I could package a power, if I could package a first-round pick, and if I could get that stud top six guy or free enough money to sign Mitch Marner. We've talked about that a lot, right? Now I could bring up the guys from Rochester freely because there's going to be open spots. They're not with the baggage of the top of the team, right? And then you're getting other veterans in here to supplement those players so that they're going to come into a better winning culture. The Sabres have both going on right now. That's why I want a general manager to come in here and say, hey, let's not be afraid to trade Bowen Byram. I know they just got him in a trade. Okay, but so the Avalanche, they got Middlestat, and that hasn't worked out, right?
And he's been here 2 years.
Yeah,
he's been here 2 years.
And he's been good. But again, I think the Sabres have too much of the same thing. So if they could move him, Byram's got a market. I mean, someone's going to take him. There's no question about it. So,
and that's the other piece of news too that came out, I think yesterday or Friday or Thursday is Bowen Byram changed his agency, hired a new agency. So, I mean, maybe that comes down to, him wanting to be here in Buffalo, or maybe that comes down to, forcing his way out of here to be like, hey, I don't want to be here. You negotiate with my agent and my new agent, and he works with another team, and we get something taken care of that way. But I mean, I'm of the mind right now that I'm perfectly fine with them keeping, and I get it. You're going to get a haul for Owen Power. You're going to get probably an NHL player and something else for Bowen Byram if you trade them. But I'm perfectly fine if they go into the season, those being your top three defensemen. But I am absolutely in the same boat you are. Is I really want to see them move some of these guys off this team, because you're not going to be able to make this roster better without changing out some of these players. I think anybody not named Dahlin should be tradable, and you can't look at it as, oh, what's he going to do in 3 years? Do you have 3 years?
No.
Do you have, as Kevin Adams, do you have 3 years to? No, you don't. You got next year. And I hope finally he realizes the urgency that he needs to have and improve this team to, like we talk about all the time, when the whole Elias Pettersson thing was going on, maybe give up that extra pick, or maybe give them the player that they want, whether it be an Owen Power or Bowen Byram or whoever it was that they wanted, and maybe acquire something a little bit more back, maybe grab a 4th round pick on top of, getting a Pettersson for an Owen Power plus, and kind of taking that, because now you need to have that urgency, because it's basically playoffs or bust for Kevin Adams and Lindy Ruff. And unfortunately, it won't be a firing of Lindy Ruff, because I don't think Terry Pegula can fire Lindy Ruff again. He'll just let his contract expire. So, and that'll just be a, whatever. But I really am of the mind that he needs to have every bit of himself seeing in the mirror the urgency that needs to happen.
Yep. Yeah. Just to throw a wild name at you, supposedly the Minnesota Wild may not be enamored with giving Marco Rossi a contract. This is a guy that you and we all wanted the Sabres to take. They took Quinn instead of Rossi in that draft, right? He's an RFA, just like a guy like Bowen Byram. Give him a call. I mean, they could probably use a younger defenseman that they could put in with their team. I mean, they do. Well, they got Faber, Spurgeon, Brodin. Maybe they want a 4th. Maybe they do. Maybe there's something that they want to do. Maybe there's some kind of trade that they could work out. I know we even got who did the Sabres just trade for again from Ottawa? It's escaping me.
Josh Norris and JVD.
I'm not afraid to trade any of these guys. I'm not.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying I'm just going to give them away. I'm not suggesting that at all. But why not consider a Marco Rossi that you could make one of your top 6 centers for the next 7 or 8 years? Why not?
Right.
Right.
No, I'm perfectly fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, you literally just got to put names on a dartboard and start throwing darts, to try and get this team changed around. And if you throw the dart and then you look at the player and you're like, does he fit here? Let's go get that player, whatever the case may be. But I'm really hoping, and this is my own thought than anything else, I'm really hoping that the mindset right now is, let's get this special advisor in to help Kevin Adams. And then they talk and figure out what they're going to do behind the bench. And then they talk and figure out what they're going to, and maybe that's why that we're so delayed on some of these moves within not only the front office, but also with the coaching staff. And I get, me saying Lindy Ruff needs to hire his own guys, but maybe he's not enough to say, hey, Kevin, these guys aren't good enough behind the bench. So let Lindy Ruff have his way and, bring in other guys, even if it's just this year. Hopefully it's longer than that because they've made the playoffs, but they literally have to do whatever it takes. Right. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm quoting the Avengers when I talk about it in Endgame, but it truly is. It's whatever it takes at this point, because you have to do whatever it takes to kind of bring the Sabres back from the abyss. Because at this point right now, it's, if he doesn't have that urgency, we're probably talking about year 15.
Yeah. I mean, the odds aren't great for us making the playoffs next year, Matt, to be honest. I mean, we've gone over the Eastern Conference, right? There's not many spots. There may just be 1 or 2, right? When you really look at this conference, there's about 5 or 6 teams that are pretty much locked in. Not a lot of places to go. So, some of the teams grouped with us, Montreal, Ottawa, they're all getting better, right? And they're going to have an offseason to get better as well. So it's, it's a tough thing. I mean, but again, I look at the LA Kings. They, besides Drew Doughty, they don't really have a top defenseman, in terms of a number 1 power play guy for a long time. He's getting older. Call him about power. See what you could do. Maybe we get
Right.
a Tanner Janot
Byfeld.
trade.
Byfeld. Quentin
Byfeld would be
Byfeld.
amazing. But even if they got a Tanner Janot, Matt, even if they got a Tanner Janot, and then that opens the door to do something else for this roster, right? That's I'm not saying it's just going to be straight up for power, but you know what I mean? It's just, yeah. And I agree with Real Deal on this too. You know, this is just a
yeah.
I agree, Real Deal. I absolutely agree. But the pressure really is on. I mean, again, let's just take it from this season, right? If we just snuck in the playoffs and we got blasted by the Capitals in 5, what would our tone be right now as an organization?
It would probably be a little bit like it would be upset, but it would also be like, oh, you know, they made the playoffs great. Let's see what they can do next year to build upon that. You know, Kevin Adams did a good job of putting this roster together. Let's give him another chance during the offseason to see what can continue to grow within this team. Obviously, minus a sweep. Like if the Sabres win 1 or 2 games, sure, absolutely, I'm still feeling that way. But if they had gotten swept, I'm still probably feeling the same way, whether they made the playoffs or not. So, I mean, but, you know.
Well, it'd just be nice to get that proverbial monkey off the back, right? Just to get that. Just to say, hey, you know, you see the Sabres have made the playoffs. Like, there's no more talk of the 14 years and stuff like that. Hey, I want to welcome one of our favorites, Steve, to today. And the advisor position is going to be really tough when your GM and coach are on a 1-year ticket. Very fair point. Now, who knows? Maybe this is some. Now, again, I'm going to throw a name out there to you. If the Sabres hired Thomas Vanek as their special assistant, what would the tone be of the franchise right now? Fans, probably a little bit better, right? He had a lot of success with the Sabres, right? He was a great player. So, but what's the difference between Eric Stahl and Thomas Vanek? Really not much. I mean, they both don't have experience, right? But Stahl wasn't good with the Sabres. Sabre fans think of Stahl as a drought guy.
Right, but I mean, you have to also remember this, though, too, Brian, is I think Steve is more talking about that former general manager type.
Yeah.
That general manager part of it that they're bringing in rather than yeah, I mean, I think the Thomas Vanek, Eric Stahl thing is a great thing, but to go more along his line is I completely agree with him in the fact that it is going to be hard with them knowing that most likely, if you don't make the playoffs, this is going to be the last year. So why am I attaching my name to that when I want to be able to throw my hat in the ring for the general manager spot? But also, too, you could look at it a completely different way. Is, hey, let me get on the Sabres. So if something does happen in next year, then I can be right there to step right in as the general manager and kind of implement my own plan. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword to, have to look at it that way. So
it is. I mean, it's funny how Carolina connection. I mean, both of our Buffalo teams. It's all about Carolina. What's up with Carolina?
Here, you want to be more upset for this year?
Oh wait, what was that? Oh,
I probably no more hockey hotline. I'm done.
That's hockey hotline. Hockey, I don't know, cold line.
Yeah,
we're gonna call it airing of grievances. Come air your grievances about the Sabres every single week, right?
Yeah,
with a Festivus,
we're gonna have Festivus every single year. Yes,
with the Sabre logo going up and down. Air your grievances about the Sabres.
Yeah,
you know what? That's something we should do on December. Let's table that for later in the year.
Let's
do that.
Yes.
But you know what, Darcy Regier? Listen, Darcy Regier he wasn't a terrible general manager. It's just, it's been 15-something years. I can't go back to the well like that. I need. Yeah. How about a assistant from the Dallas Stars? Why don't we call that organization and throw the kitchen sink at a guy who may be a commodity? I know Dallas has the tax advantages, but look at the way they've drafted over the last 7 or 8 years. Phenomenal. Not high picks. They're picking guys left and right. Right? They built a great organization. Why don't we do that? That's what I want to see them do. Matt, I want a fresh face like that from who's got real track line success, not just some former player like Kevin Adams. Like, I want someone like that. Like, why don't we try to pluck one of those guys? I mean, Terry's got to open the wallet. I hate to say it. That's just what's got to happen.
And I think he's like, here's my thing with Terry Pegula, right? So I think him going, having those presentations done by both Ruff and I almost said Regier, Ruff and Kevin Adams. I think him seeing that plan and it better have been talked about that he needs to open the wallet. I think that if he's giving Kevyn Adams with his plan the time, I think he's going to be of the mind to be able to allowing him to open that wallet a little bit. So, and we heard Kevyn Adams talk about it, during after the trade deadline. It's never been about opening a wallet. It's never been about anything like that. They didn't spend to the cap this year because just like you and I surmised, it's because that they felt that they needed that money for whatever down the road with extensions and things like that, which you can look at it however it annoys the hell out of me, is that whole thing. But at the same time, we have to talk about this year and this year only, because this is hopefully the final year of Kevyn Adams. And there's a player that you brought up a little bit, like about 10 minutes ago, in Mitch Marner. I think that having Matthew Knies is going to make it a lot harder, or maybe a lot easier, for them to say goodbye to Mitch Marner. And I think that Marner and Knies both having the playoffs that they're having, I think that it makes Marner more likely to hit free agency than he would have before playoffs. I truly thought that Toronto was going to make an attempt to keep him. I still think that they may make an attempt to keep him, but at the same time, I think it's going to be more likely now that he hits free agency, whether the Sabres are involved or not. And that's one of the things that I was talking about urgency, is whether the Sabres get him or not, I want to hear their name involved with Mitch Marner. I want to see, he's deciding between the Sabres and the Devils and the Stars or whatever.
Yeah.
I just want to, I want to see that they're going after somebody like a Mitch Marner and proving that you have urgency. You want to show urgency. That's a way to show urgency, is to be involved in things like that. And they've been involved in, a lot of these big time players. They were involved in Stamkos. They were involved in Taylor Hall and ended up getting Taylor Hall. However you think about it, he was the best free agent on the market at the time, and they were able to get him in here on a 1-year deal. Yes, it didn't work out, but that was the part that for me that was originally was like, oh, hey, we might have something in Kevyn Adams. He's proved otherwise, but at the start, it was like, okay, this is a good start. He's bringing in somebody like a Taylor Hall. So if you want to show urgency and you want to, Mitch Marner's got to be on the top of your list. He has to be. Has to be.
Yeah. We have to be in there. I agree with you. I mean, I think the biggest thing that with this organization is, and this is a great point that Steve made, it'd be easier if we were hiring a GM and Adams would be moved up to a hockey operations role.
Yep.
Terry Pegula's over loyalty to Kevyn Adams is costing our organization dearly. We probably would have Ken Holland as our general manager right now if it wasn't for that.
Maybe.
Maybe. If I really believe if Ken Holland was called and they say, hey, listen, Kevin, we're going to give you the keys to the kingdom. You're going to be the general manager. You're going to be able to run this organization the way you want to do it. I still believe if you look at this team and if you look at the assets that they have and the opportunity in a great hockey market that everybody knows, right? Guys like Ken Holland knows. He knows how great of a market Buffalo still could be. He knows. I think they do it. I don't see why they would not. I think it's a legacy builder. If you went in a place like Buffalo, it would be huge.
And you saw the Toronto game from Game 1 against Florida out in their plaza. The Sabres were like when they were at the top of their top of the success in the early 2000s, or mid 2000s, I should say. That was the Sabres times like 10, because this market is as good, if not better, than the Toronto market. It truly is.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, Buffalo is still a great, is it for the size, the percentage of fans that could be all in? We've seen it, right? It's obviously we're not going to have the many people as Toronto has at games or whatever, but Toronto's like the New York of Canada. So it's really hard to compare, but it just, it's there. I mean, listen, a lot of us are still here, 14 years with this team, no playoffs. The Sabres still have plenty of fans out there. They still got plenty of followers on their Twitter account. They're still out there, and it's just, and again, this is a real danger point though for this organization. We're getting to the point where, kind of like where the Bills were when they missed the playoffs for 17 years, right? They needed to make something happen,
but there's a difference. There's a difference, and I want to stop you in your tracks right there because there's a difference. The Bills tried to make moves every single year that would boost. I mean, T.O., Mario Williams, Jerry Hughes, any things that they've done. They, Drew Bledsoe in the beginning of that with Greg Williams is trying. They've always done. Whereas the Sabres, I feel like they've just sat on their hands and brought in mid to low level talent this entire time, minus the Eric Stahl and the Taylor Hall thing back in the COVID year or the year after COVID. So I mean, every single player that they've got in here that's been any talent wise, Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, minus the O'Reilly and the Evander Kane thing, which happened basically a year apart from each other. They, and that was a completely different regime. Haven't done anything really since that really moved the needle at all. And, they've had to draft their talent rather than, bringing guys in off of free agency or off of the trade market or anything like that. I want to be that team when the end of February, early March rolls around, when trade deadline rolls around. I want to be the team that's renting a player. I want to be the team that's, let's gear up for this Stanley Cup run and continue moving forward. Getting a guy for a second round pick or a first round pick or a mid-level talent on my roster that's going to, be exchanged for a rental guy. Yep. Absolutely. So I feel like we've literally sat here and, tried to see the positives today, tried to see, but we've kind of been a little negative on the Sabres, but it's kind of hard not to at this point.
They have earned that reputation over many years, Matt.
They have.
And, all of us here in the group chat, they know it's the same. So, and again, we always appreciate all the great comments from all of the usual suspects that we get on this early Saturday. So definitely appreciate it as we go forward. And Matt, we'll get more into the building of the team next year as we go forward, right? We're going to have plenty of time as we get closer and closer to which is coming up faster than you realize. It'll be late June. So we'll discuss some exciting things coming up.
And we are trying to figure out what is going to be the giveaway for the draft when we do that. So we want to give away something from the first day of the draft, just like we did for the NFL draft. So with that being said, I mean, just definitely keep a lookout on Due Champions for all that stuff. We got our Bills podcast tonight, Third Manageable, 9 p.m. tonight. We interviewed Joe Kroom earlier in the week, so definitely we're gonna be playing some of that tonight and talking some Bills and other things going on tonight. You're gonna be back on Wednesday. Buffalo Blueprint should be on tomorrow night, and then your Wednesday 9 p.m. with the Almighty Whittle, and then Chase and Data next Friday, and Friday Night Lights with Pat Bruckness next Friday 11 p.m.
I may be trying to join him one of these weeks, so just a little teaser there. So I'm going to try to get on there with him. But
absolutely.
Then next week we'll see if we have somebody new in the organization to talk about.
Hopefully we have some stuff Hopefully we have some stuff to talk about. Otherwise, we're going to be moving on to the draft and kind of previewing some of our favorite players maybe at 9 that we can potentially be looking at here as Sabres, and maybe some trade ideas if with myself who thinks that trade should or that pick should be traded. So, every Saturday.
Good to be seen, and go Sabres. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining us.